Question 1. A development team, now called developers in the Scrum Guide, consistently commits to more work than it can complete in a sprint, frequently failing to meet the sprint goal. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Advocate for reducing the sprint length to create more frequent feedback loops. B. Coach the developers on proper capacity planning and the importance of creating a realistic sprint backlog. C. Facilitate a discussion with the product owner to lower expectations and reduce the scope of sprint goals. D. Report the team's performance issues to functional management for intervention and potential reassignments. Answer: B. Coach the developers on proper capacity planning and the importance of creating a realistic sprint backlog. When developers consistently overcommit, it signals a need for improved self-management and planning within the team itself. The Scrum Master's primary role here is to coach the developers on how to accurately estimate their capacity, refine product backlog items effectively, and select a realistic amount of work for the sprint backlog during sprint planning, ensuring the sprint goal remains achievable. This approach upholds empiricism by enabling the team to learn from their past performance and adapt their planning for future sprints. Remember, the Scrum Master empowers the team to solve its own challenges rather than taking control or escalating prematurely. Question 2. During a sprint, a critical external stakeholder approaches the developers directly with an urgent request, insisting it be worked on immediately. How should the Scrum Master guide the team in this situation? A. Advise the developers to add the request to the sprint backlog and renegotiate the sprint goal with the product owner. B. Instruct the developers to pause their current work and immediately address the urgent request to ensure stakeholder satisfaction. C. Remind the developers that all new work must go through the product owner, who is responsible for managing the product backlog. D. Facilitate a meeting with the stakeholder, product owner, and developers to determine the priority and feasibility of the request. Answer: C. Remind the developers that all new work must go through the product owner, who is responsible for managing the product backlog. The Scrum framework designates the product owner as the sole authority for managing the product backlog and optimizing the value of the work done by the developers. When a critical external stakeholder tries to introduce work directly, it bypasses this crucial accountability and can disrupt the sprint goal, impacting the team's focus. The Scrum Master's role is to ensure proper Scrum adherence, which includes protecting the developers from external interferences that could compromise the sprint. Guiding the developers to direct all new requests to the product owner maintains transparency and allows for proper prioritization. Question 3. What is the primary purpose of the daily Scrum for the developers? A. To report progress to the Scrum Master and product owner. B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. C. To commit to new product backlog items for the next 24 hours. D. To resolve impediments with the help of the Scrum Master. Answer: B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. The daily Scrum is an event for the developers, by the developers, to inspect their progress towards the sprint goal and plan their work for the next 24 hours. It is not a status meeting for management or other stakeholders, rather, it is a key opportunity for the self-managing team to identify potential obstacles and adapt their approach to maximize their chances of achieving the sprint goal. This daily inspection and adaptation reinforces empiricism and helps the team remain focused and agile throughout the sprint. By focusing on the sprint goal, the developers ensure their daily activities are aligned with the overall sprint objective. Question 4. A product owner is frequently unavailable for sprint planning and product backlog refinement sessions, leading to an inadequately defined product backlog and a lack of clear sprint goals. What is the most effective approach for the Scrum Master? A. Take on the responsibility of refining product backlog items and setting sprint goals to keep the team productive. B. Coach the product owner on the importance of their availability and the impact of their absence on the Scrum team's effectiveness and value delivery. C. Suggest the developers proceed with the best available information, creating their own interpretations of product backlog items. D. Escalate the issue to the product owner's functional manager, seeking disciplinary action for their lack of engagement. Answer: B. Coach the product owner on the importance of their availability and the impact of their absence on the Scrum team's effectiveness and value delivery. The Scrum Master serves the product owner by helping them find techniques for effective product backlog management, including ensuring the backlog is refined and transparent, and communicating the product goal. A product owner's frequent absence directly undermines these aspects, hindering the developer's ability to plan effectively and the team's overall value delivery. The most effective approach for a Scrum Master is to coach the product owner, explaining the vital impact their presence and proactive engagement have on the Scrum team's ability to create valuable increments and maintain transparency. The Scrum Master empowers the product owner to understand and fulfill their accountability, fostering self-improvement rather than simply taking over or escalating. Question 5. The Scrum team is struggling with cross-functional collaboration, as individual developers tend to work in silos on tasks related to their specific skill sets. What action should the Scrum Master prioritize to address this? A. Reassign tasks to ensure each developer works on items outside their comfort zone to force collaboration. B. Coach the developers on the benefits of swarming and pairing, emphasizing collective code ownership and shared responsibility for the increment. C. Recommend hiring more versatile developers to balance the team's skill set and reduce reliance on specialists. D. Implement a strict peer review process where every line of code must be reviewed by at least 2 other developers. Answer: B. Coach the developers on the benefits of swarming and pairing, emphasizing collective code ownership and shared responsibility for the increment. The Scrum Master helps the developers become a self-managing, cross-functional team, meaning they possess all the skills needed to create value each sprint. When developers work in silos, it hinders the team's ability to flexibly address work and deliver a cohesive increment. Coaching on techniques like swarming, multiple developers working on one item simultaneously, and pairing, 2 developers working on the same item at one computer, encourages knowledge sharing, builds collective ownership, and improves the overall flow of work towards the sprint goal. This directly addresses the team's self-management and cross-functional capabilities, which are core tenets of Scrum. Question 6. What does "done" mean for a product backlog item in Scrum? A. The item has been coded, and the developers have performed initial unit tests. B. The item meets the quality standards defined by the Scrum team, stakeholders, and the organization. C. The item has been reviewed by the product owner and is ready for customer demonstration. D. The item has been accepted by the customer and is in a production environment. Answer: B. The item meets the quality standards defined by the Scrum team, stakeholders, and the organization. The definition of "done" is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. This shared understanding of "done" ensures transparency regarding the work completed and allows for a consistent quality baseline for every increment. It applies to all product backlog items and is created by the developers, though influenced by the organization's standards and external stakeholders. An increment that is "done" is immediately usable and releasable, regardless of whether the product owner chooses to release it. Question 7. A new Scrum team is frequently struggling to complete their sprint goal. During the Sprint Retrospective, the developers identify that interruptions from external sources are a major impediment. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Implement a "no interruptions" policy for the developers and redirect all inquiries to the Scrum Master. B. Coach the developers on how to communicate their availability and manage external expectations effectively. C. Escalate the issue to senior management to enforce a company-wide policy against interrupting Scrum teams. D. Help the developers add buffer time into their sprint planning to account for anticipated interruptions. Answer: B. Coach the developers on how to communicate their availability and manage external expectations effectively. The Scrum Master is a servant leader who helps the Scrum team improve its practices and remove impediments. While protecting the team from distractions is part of their role, empowering the developers to self-manage is crucial. Coaching them on how to communicate about their focus and manage external expectations directly addresses the root cause of the interruptions within the team's self-management capabilities. This approach fosters responsibility and autonomy, enabling the team to handle similar situations independently in the future rather than relying solely on the Scrum Master as a shield. Question 8. What is the primary accountability of the product owner regarding the product backlog? A. To ensure the product backlog items are refined to a suitable level for upcoming sprints. B. To order the product backlog items to best achieve the product goal. C. To communicate the product goal and the items in the product backlog to stakeholders. D. To accurately estimate the effort required for each product backlog item. Answer: B. To order the product backlog items to best achieve the product goal. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team, and effective product backlog management is key to this. Their primary accountability is to order the product backlog items to best achieve the product goal, ensuring the most valuable work is tackled first. While refining, communicating, and ensuring transparency are also crucial activities they perform, the strategic ordering directly drives value maximization by sequencing the work effectively. This demonstrates their role in guiding the team toward the product's vision. Question 9. During a sprint review, stakeholders express dissatisfaction because the increment does not contain a crucial feature they expected. The product owner argues it was not prioritized due to technical dependencies. What should the Scrum Master do in this situation? A. Defend the product owner's decision, explaining the complexities of technical dependencies to the stakeholders. B. Facilitate a constructive dialogue between the product owner, developers, and stakeholders to understand the missed expectations and adjust the product backlog. C. Suggest the product owner apologize for the miscommunication and immediately commit to delivering the feature in the next sprint. D. Remind the stakeholders that the increment is done and represents the best possible outcome given the sprint's constraints. Answer: B. Facilitate a constructive dialogue between the product owner, developers, and stakeholders to understand the missed expectations and adjust the product backlog. The sprint review is a working session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog based on feedback. When expectations are misaligned, the Scrum Master's role is to facilitate open communication and collaboration. This involves guiding a conversation that uncovers the reasons for the discrepancy and allows all parties to contribute to future planning. This collaborative approach upholds transparency and adaptation, essential Scrum pillars, ensuring that feedback genuinely informs subsequent sprints and helps align the product backlog with stakeholder needs. Question 10. The Scrum team is struggling with delivering an increment that meets the definition of done by the end of the sprint. During the Sprint Retrospective, they realize that their current definition of done is not robust enough. Who is primarily accountable for evolving the definition of done? A. The product owner, as they are accountable for maximizing value. B. The Scrum Master, as they are accountable for ensuring the Scrum team adheres to Scrum. C. The developers, as they create the increment and are committed to quality. D. The entire Scrum team collaboratively, with accountability resting with the developers. Answer: D. The entire Scrum team collaboratively, with accountability resting with the developers. The definition of done is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for the product. While the entire Scrum team should agree on it, the developers are primarily accountable for creating, adhering to, and adapting the definition of done. This ensures the increment consistently meets the quality standards necessary for it to be considered done, usable, and potentially releasable. The Scrum Master guides the developers in understanding its importance, and the product owner respects it, but the developers hold the direct accountability for its creation and evolution, making the team's commitment to quality transparent. Question 11. What is the main characteristic of a done increment? A. It has passed all unit tests and is ready for integration with other components. B. It is usable and potentially releasable to end users. C. It has been demonstrated to the product owner and received their approval. D. It contains all features initially planned for the sprint. Answer: B. It is usable and potentially releasable to end users. A done increment means that all work necessary to make the product backlog items usable and meet the definition of done has been completed. This implies it's in a state where it could be released to end users without further work, regardless of whether the product owner chooses to release it immediately. The ability to be potentially releasable is a core tenet of Scrum, reinforcing transparency and allowing for rapid feedback and adaptation, thus maximizing value by providing a valuable, working product increment at the end of every sprint. Question 12. A Scrum team finds that the Sprint Retrospective consistently devolves into a blame game, rather than focusing on constructive improvements. How should the Scrum Master address this challenge? A. Cancel the Sprint Retrospective until the team commits to a more positive attitude. B. Act as a neutral facilitator, establishing ground rules and coaching the team on effective feedback techniques and psychological safety. C. Document the negative behaviors and report them to relevant functional managers for disciplinary action. D. Shift the focus of the retrospective to only celebrate successes, ignoring areas for improvement. Answer: B. Act as a neutral facilitator, establishing ground rules and coaching the team on effective feedback techniques and psychological safety. The Sprint Retrospective is a crucial opportunity for the Scrum team to inspect itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the next sprint. When it becomes a blame game, it undermines the psychological safety necessary for honest reflection and improvement. The Scrum Master, as a facilitator and coach, needs to guide the team by establishing a safe environment, reinforcing the purpose of the event, and teaching constructive communication techniques. This allows the team to learn from its experiences and adapt its processes without fear, embodying the Scrum values of openness and respect. Question 13. Which Scrum value is best demonstrated when the developers volunteer to help a struggling teammate complete their work, even if it means stepping outside their primary area of expertise? A. Commitment. B. Focus. C. Openness. D. Courage. Answer: A. Commitment. When developers volunteer to help a struggling teammate, they are demonstrating commitment to the team's success and, by extension, to achieving the sprint goal. This action reflects their dedication to getting the work done collaboratively, rather than focusing solely on individual tasks or expertise. The Scrum Guide emphasizes that people personally commit to achieving the goals of the Scrum team, supporting each other and working together to maximize shared outcomes. This commitment to the collective goal often requires stepping outside individual comfort zones for the greater good of the team. Question 14. A product owner is struggling to gain buy-in from key stakeholders on the product goal. What is the most effective way for the Scrum Master to assist the product owner? A. Facilitate workshops for the product owner and stakeholders to clarify the product goal and its alignment with business objectives. B. Advise the product owner to proceed without full buy-in, as they are the sole authority for the product backlog. C. Suggest the product owner involve developers in direct communication with stakeholders to explain the technical feasibility of the product goal. D. Take over the communication efforts to explain the product goal to stakeholders on behalf of the product owner. Answer: A. Facilitate workshops for the product owner and stakeholders to clarify the product goal and its alignment with business objectives. The Scrum Master serves the product owner by helping them find techniques for effective product goal definition and product backlog management. When stakeholders lack buy-in, it often stems from a lack of transparency or shared understanding. Facilitating workshops provides a structured environment for the product owner to articulate the product goal, gather feedback, address concerns, and foster collaboration with stakeholders. This empowers the product owner to build consensus and alignment, which is critical for successful product development. The Scrum Master enables, rather than dictates or takes over, the product owner's accountability. Question 15. What is the primary purpose of product backlog refinement? A. To plan the next sprint in detail. B. To break down and further define product backlog items to make them ready for future sprints. C. To estimate the total effort for all items in the product backlog. D. To select the items for the upcoming sprint backlog. Answer: B. To break down and further define product backlog items to make them ready for future sprints. Product backlog refinement is the ongoing process of adding detail, estimates, and order to items in the product backlog. Its primary purpose is to ensure that product backlog items are well understood, clearly defined, and appropriately sized so they can be selected for a sprint without significant unknowns or ambiguities. This collaborative activity helps the Scrum team prepare for future sprints by creating a ready backlog, ensuring a smooth sprint planning experience and contributing to flow. It's an ongoing activity, not a formal event, typically consuming no more than 10% of the developer's time. Question 16. The Scrum Master observes that the developers are consistently spending significant time on technical debt and bug fixes, hindering the delivery of new features. What should the Scrum Master do? A. Instruct the product owner to dedicate a full sprint to addressing technical debt. B. Coach the developers on how to integrate technical debt reduction and bug fixes into their ongoing work. C. Document the technical debt and present it to management, requesting additional resources. D. Advise the developers to ignore technical debt and focus solely on new features to meet sprint goals. Answer: B. Coach the developers on how to integrate technical debt reduction and bug fixes into their ongoing work. Technical debt and bug fixes are realities in software development and should be managed as part of the overall product development lifecycle. The Scrum Master's role is to help the developers become a self-managing team, capable of making informed decisions about how to balance new feature development with maintaining product quality. Coaching them to incorporate these essential activities into their daily work ensures they are part of the sprint backlog and become transparent. This approach fosters sustainable development and prevents accumulation of unmanageable technical debt, rather than requiring separate sprints or external intervention. Question 17. Which of the following best describes the Scrum Master's role in relation to organizational impediments? A. To identify all organizational impediments and remove them personally. B. To help the Scrum team identify organizational impediments and work with others to remove them. C. To report organizational impediments to senior management and wait for their resolution. D. To shield the Scrum team from all organizational impediments so they can focus solely on product development. Answer: B. To help the Scrum team identify organizational impediments and work with others to remove them. The Scrum Master serves the organization by leading, training, and coaching it in its Scrum adoption, which includes removing barriers between stakeholders and Scrum teams. While the Scrum Master helps the team remove impediments, they often need to collaborate with others outside the team to address organizational-level obstacles. Their role involves identifying these impediments with the team, raising awareness, and then working with relevant individuals or departments to facilitate their removal, rather than solving everything themselves or merely escalating. This fosters an environment conducive to Scrum's success beyond just the team. Question 18. What is the primary purpose of the sprint goal? A. To define the exact scope of work for the sprint. B. To provide a flexible target that guides the developers during the sprint. C. To serve as a contractual agreement between the product owner and the developers. D. To ensure that all product backlog items selected for the sprint are completed. Answer: B. To provide a flexible target that guides the developers during the sprint. The sprint goal is the single objective for the sprint. Although the sprint backlog represents the work, the sprint goal provides the overarching purpose and flexibility. It guides the developers on why they are building the increment and allows them to adapt their plan, the sprint backlog, within the sprint if unexpected challenges or new insights arise. This focus helps the developers work together, maintaining flexibility while staying aligned to a cohesive objective. The sprint goal fosters cohesion and provides a guiding light, rather than a rigid contract, allowing for necessary adaptation. Question 19. A Scrum team has been consistently delivering done increments for several sprints. However, the product owner notices that the product's overall quality is gradually declining, as observed by increasing customer complaints and technical issues. What does this situation indicate a potential weakness in? A. The product owner's ability to prioritize the product backlog. B. The Scrum Master's ability to facilitate daily stand-ups. C. The definition of done's robustness and application. D. The developer's commitment to the sprint goal. Answer: C. The definition of done's robustness and application. The definition of done is the Scrum team's shared understanding of what it means for work to be complete and of high quality, ensuring transparency, and providing a baseline for future increments. If done increments are leading to declining quality and increasing customer complaints, it strongly suggests that the definition of done itself is not comprehensive enough to capture all necessary quality attributes, or that it is not being consistently applied. The team's definition of done must evolve to include sufficient quality standards to truly ensure a usable and valuable increment. Question 20. When should the developers create their plan for the sprint backlog? A. During the daily scrum. B. Throughout the sprint, as needed. C. Exclusively during sprint planning. D. At the beginning of the sprint, during sprint planning, and adapted throughout the sprint. Answer: D. At the beginning of the sprint, during sprint planning, and adapted throughout the sprint. The sprint backlog is composed of the sprint goal, the product backlog items selected for the sprint, and the plan for delivering them. While the initial creation of this plan happens during sprint planning, the developers continually adapt it throughout the sprint. They may replan their work daily during the daily scrum and adjust their approach as they learn more about the work required to achieve the sprint goal. This continuous adaptation is a core aspect of self-management and empiricism, allowing the team to remain flexible and responsive. Question 21. A Scrum Master notices that developers are frequently pulling the next available product backlog item without much discussion or collaboration, even when it might be more efficient to work together on a complex item. What Scrum value is least emphasized in this behavior? A. Openness. B. Respect. C. Focus. D. Courage. Answer: C. Focus. When developers pull items individually without considering collective efficiency or complex dependencies, they might be lacking a strong focus on the sprint goal as a shared objective. While they might be individually committed, their behavior does not demonstrate a collective focus on achieving the sprint goal most effectively. The Scrum value of focus encourages the entire Scrum team to concentrate on the work of the sprint and the sprint goal, implying working collaboratively to complete items efficiently, rather than just individual task completion. Question 22. A Scrum team finds themselves frequently interrupted by management requesting detailed progress reports and estimates for upcoming sprints. What is the most effective way for the Scrum Master to handle this? A. Generate detailed reports for management to satisfy their requests and shield the team. B. Coach management on Scrum's empirical nature, the value of transparency through artifacts like the increment, and the unreliability of long-term fixed-scope predictions. C. Advise the developers to inflate their estimates to provide a buffer against unrealistic expectations. D. Schedule dedicated weekly meetings for the Scrum team to provide updates directly to management. Answer: B. Coach management on Scrum's empirical nature, the value of transparency through artifacts like the increment, and the unreliability of long-term fixed-scope predictions. Scrum Masters serve the organization by helping it understand and adopt Scrum. Frequent demands for detailed reports often stem from traditional project management paradigms that prioritize predictability and fixed plans. The most effective approach is to educate management on the principles of empiricism, transparency, inspection, adaptation, inherent in Scrum, emphasizing that value is delivered through frequent, done, increments and transparency is achieved through the product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment itself. This coaching helps shift the organizational mindset towards Agile principles, fostering a more supportive environment. Question 23. What is the best way for a Scrum Master to address a situation where a Scrum team consistently struggles with external dependencies that delay their work? A. Take ownership of resolving all external dependencies for the team. B. Coach the team to proactively identify, communicate, and manage these dependencies, while also working with external groups to improve collaboration. C. Insist that the product owner removes any product backlog items with external dependencies. D. Recommend splitting the Scrum team into smaller, more specialized teams to reduce dependencies. Answer. B. Coach the team to proactively identify, communicate, and manage these dependencies, while also working with external groups to improve collaboration. External dependencies are a common challenge. While the Scrum Master serves as an impediment remover, empowering the Scrum team is key. The most effective approach is multifaceted. Coach the developers to be proactive in identifying and communicating their needs to external groups, thereby fostering their self-management. Simultaneously, the Scrum Master works with those external groups and the wider organization to improve collaboration and reduce these systemic dependencies. This approach addresses both the immediate impediment and improves the organizational ecosystem. Question 24. Which statement best describes the sprint review? A. A formal meeting to approve or reject the increment and ensure it meets contractual obligations. B. An informal gathering for the Scrum team to demonstrate what they have completed during the sprint. C. A working session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. D. A planning event for the next sprint, where the product owner prioritizes the product backlog. Answer. C. A working session where the Scrum team and stakeholders inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog. The sprint review is a key Scrum event that allows the Scrum team and stakeholders to inspect the done increment, discuss what was accomplished, and collaborate on what to do next. It is not just a demo or a formal approval gate, it's a dynamic, collaborative session where feedback is gathered and the product backlog is adapted based on new insights. This event embodies empiricism by providing transparency into the increment and enabling adaptation of the product based on real-time feedback. Question 25. The product owner has a very clear vision for the product and dictates the sprint goal and the exact product backlog items to be included in the sprint without much input from the developers. How should the Scrum Master address this? A. Coach the product owner on the value of collaboration with the developers in crafting the sprint goal and selecting items. B. Allow the product owner to continue, as they are solely accountable for maximizing the value of the product. C. Remind the developers that they must commit to the work given to them by the product owner. D. Facilitate a meeting with senior management to clarify the product owner's role and responsibilities. Answer. A. Coach the product owner on the value of collaboration with the developers in crafting the sprint goal and selecting items. While the product owner is accountable for maximizing value and managing the product backlog, the sprint goal is created collaboratively by the entire Scrum team during sprint planning. The developers, being the ones who will do the work, are best positioned to assess their capacity and collaboratively choose the product backlog items for the sprint backlog. The Scrum Master's role is to coach the product owner to understand that true collaboration fosters better team buy-in, more realistic planning, and ultimately, a more effective and sustainable delivery of value. This aligns with the principle of self-managing teams.